Zeus reigns over the world. From the kingdom of the sky, Zeus looked down upon earth and ruled all over the things. He struck at evil and established order. Pity the fool who dared break the laws laid down by Zeus. For if he once lowered his brows, black clouds would immediately shroud the skies. When anger seized him, his face would become terrible to behold, and blinding sparks would flash from his eyes. He had only to lift his hand, and claps of thunder and lightning bolts would split the heavens apart and shake the whole world. Thus, Zeus showed his power, punishing those who disturbed the peace and reminding men of the laws of the gods. But as long as men were law-abiding and worshipped him, Zeus rewarded them with life-giving sunshine and rain to swell the seed, and men enjoyed the fruits of his generosity. To ensure that the laws were observed and order maintained, all the other gods supported Zeus and hastened to his command. Themis, the goddess of law, was always to be found at Zeus' side. She received his commands and conveyed them immediately to mortal men. Thus the laws laid down by the ruler of the world were established upon earth. Another goddess, Justice, defended the right and hated falsehood. Whenever she saw an injustice, she would report it immediately to Zeus, and he would deliver his verdict. Woe betide the lawbreaker on whom mortal Zeus passed sentence, for no harsher punishment could ever have been imposed. But if an offender repented before it was too late and begged forgiveness, then Zeus, in his mercy, would always pardon him, and the cruel furies would cease to torment him. Zeus also sent joys and sorrows to man. Two great clay jars stood at the entrance of the courts of Olympus. The one contained all that was good, the other all the evils of the world. From them Zeus drew out both good and evil, and sent them to every man on earth. At last, for the mortal to whom great Zeus sent gifts, for only the jar filled with evils. He was doomed to misfortune, and there was no way he could save himself, for such was the will of the ruler of the gods. Whoever received gifts only from the jar of good fortune was a happy man indeed. But such cases were so rare as to be almost unheard of. Whoever received both good and evil equally had reason to be satisfied, for the lot of man is a hard one. It is the destiny of man to suffer, declared Almighty Zeus, since even the immortal gods know both joy and bitter sorrow. And here I would like to show the picture. Very good drawn. It continued this way. But if Zeus dealt out joy and suffering, it was his 3 daughters, the remorseless Fates, who decided on man's final end. Zeus never intervened in their work, for no one has the right to change the laws which govern life. The Fates thus wielded awesome power, and were deaf to all entreaty, all prayers, and all sacrifices. Whatever the Fates decided, both gods and mortals had to bow to. The first of them, Clotho, spun the thread of every human life and determined how long each would live. When the thread was cut, then that life too was ended. The second, Lachesis, drew with closed eyes the lot which was to befall each mortal, good or bad, that would be his fate. Nobody could change the fortune chosen for him by the fates. For the third of these sisters, Atropos, wrote down on a long scroll in indelible and unchangeable letters whatever had been decided by the other two, and what was written not even the fates themselves could erase. Such were the fates, cruel, stern, and majestic. However, apart from the implacable fates, there lived on Olympus a kind of generous goddess who sent manly only good gifts. She was the goddess of happiness and plenty, and her name was Fortune. In her hands she held the horn of Amalthea, that same horn Zeus accidentally pulled from the head of the sacred god while playing with her during his childhood. Now, this light-footed goddess roamed the world and showered upon man the rich gifts which poured from the magic horn. But the eyes of Fortune were always bound, and so her gifts fell at random, sometimes favoring the just and sometimes the unjust, sometimes the hard-working and sometimes the lazy. Whoever crossed the path of goddess was a lucky man, for immediately she would upturn the horn of plenty and gifts would pour from it in profusion. Yet the lucky are few in number, for it is rare indeed to cross the path of fortune, and the truly lucky fewer still, for wealth alone is not enough to bring man happiness. Zeus himself also helped man in many ways. At Dodone he had a sacred oak tree which bore sweet and succulent acorns. Indeed, it is said that these acorns were the first fruit that man ever ate. Whoever sought the advice of Zeus would come to the holy oak, and after they had sacrificed to the god and humbly made their request, a breeze would spring up and a rustling be heard from among the oak tree's leaves. Then the priest would explain the rustling and deliver the oracle of Zeus. Whatever the oracle's advice, it was respected. No man was ever known to seek the counsel of Zeus at Dodone and then reject it. But of all the places where Zeus was honored, the most renowned was Olympia. Here stood the most imposing of all the temples to Olympian Zeus. Every 4 years, all of Greece, although it was divided into many city-states, would meet in friendship at Olympia to render homage to the god and to take part in the famous Olympic Games. Sacred heralds would announce the event with trumpets in every corner of the land. Even if a war was in progress, it would stop, and the thoughts of all will turn to victories of another kind in the Olympic Stadium. There allied youths would compete in running, jumping, discus throwing, wrestling, and other events. Their only reward would be a wreath of life, leaves, and their only wish to win, through fair play, glory both for themselves and for the cities which could boast such fine young men as these.